that chapter and then watching it.
So today we're going to talk about prepositions and the to be verb. So who can tell me what a preposition is?
Word that indicates a relationship between two words.
Yeah. So what is our fun verb or our fun sentence we've been looking at?
The red fox.
Yeah. So the quick brown fox or quick red fox. We'll just write this out quickly. Red fox. Over the lazy brown dog.
Is the preposition what indicates the relationship between two words?
Okay. So what is our subject? We'll just get that out of the way.
Fox.
Correct. What's our object?
Dog.
Okay. I'll just write OBJ. What is our verb?
Jump.
Jumped, yeah. So we have a preposition in this sentence. What is that preposition?
Over.
Over, yeah. So I'm just going to write prep. So this preposition, the object is dog. Obviously, the subject is fox. And so it's giving us the relationship between the fox and the dog. What is the fox doing with the dog? Jumping over the dog. What would happen if we changed this preposition to a different preposition? Could we do that?
Yeah.
Give me a different preposition we could do that with.
Jumped around.
Jumped around. And how does that change the sentence?
Gives you an idea that he went around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, rather than jumping over the dog, he's jumping around the dog. Give me another preposition.
Through.
Ooh, jump through. Yeah, you could do that. You'd be like, how did he do that? But with prepositions, we can do that.
Okay.
Another one we can do, as you can see, the preposition is a small word, but has huge importance. We could even change it into jumped into the lazy brown dog. What does that tell us about the quick brown fox, quick red fox?
The lazy brown dog is the name of the chair.
Well, that could be it. Or the fox ran into the dog.
Jumped into the, yeah.
What about after?
That was a lazy boy.
Jumped after. What would that tell us? If just changing the preposition. Yeah. This is fun. After.
The lazy brown dog jumped first.
Yeah. And then let's change it once more. Yeah, so prepositions are huge, but they're showing the relationship between two nouns. Jumped with the lazy brown dog. Now it's a collaborative effort. So this is kind of what the preposition is going to be doing for us. Is it's going to be changing. Yeah, so it's going to be changing the sentence, but it's going to be showing the relationship between the subject and the object. And so the preposition is going to take the object. We have an article, and then we have two adjectives. But the preposition here is modifying object. So one thing we do need to recognize is that the preposition is always going to be in the objective case. It agrees with the object. We could say that this is our predicate, the quick red fox jumped over or with the lazy brown dog, whatever preposition we want to stick with. Whereas Greek, so the nice thing about preposition is that the function of prepositions are the same in both Greek and English. They're going to have slightly different nuances. Let me see where I'm at. So the meaning of the preposition in Greek doesn't depend on the objective case, but it is going to depend on the case itself. So here is a very common preposition you guys will see. I'm going to write it out twice just so you can see it. So dia versus dia. In this case, the meaning of the preposition isn't by word order, but more by the case of the noun. So we have dia and dia. One means through, one means on account of. And so I'm going to show you the differences between the two. So the case, so for this one here, we're going to go, so dia Iesu. Dia Iesu means through Jesus. This one over here is going to be dia Iesun. And this one's going to be on account of or because of Jesus. So what's the difference between the two?
Because Jesus is an accusative.
Yep. So because Jesus over here is in the accusative, Jesus over here is in the genitive.
So the case dictates what the case of the preposition is.
Yeah. So here's a wonderful thing. I told you guys that you're going to be learning paradigms tonight, or at least one paradigm. Prepositions don't have paradigms. The form of the preposition is not going to change, and I'll show you the only when it will change, but it's not going to change because of function. The meaning and the function of the preposition will always pretty much look something like this. But there's dozens and dozens of prepositions. Let me see where I've got my book. There we are. So any questions on these before I get rid of the board?
Yeah.
Prepositions are really simple. Just know how they function. I would recommend having different different word cards for dia, one in the genitive through, one in the accusative on account of.
Okay.
And Mounts will tell you which prepositions mean what in what case. In, for example, will always take its object in the dative case. And that's true. You'll see so many times like this in auto. And I've already told you with those helper words, right? When you see a preposition with your noun, you're not going to translate with your helper words, but you are going to translate it with that preposition, in him. So I told you the dative has to in with, right? The preposition takes precedence over your helper word because it's telling you how to translate. In him.
Okay.
Versus if you just saw auto or to auto, it most likely would be to him. So when you see the preposition in here, you're not going to be translating into him. You're just going to go
In him.
In him. In that case of dia Iesu, it's not going to be through of Jesus. It's going to be through Jesus. So you see the preposition, you drop that helper word. It'll become second nature to you. Let me also just draw a nice big circle for you, kind of show you how some prepositions are working. So first one we're going to go with, in relation to the circle, I do have to have that smooth breathing mark. In relation to the circle, where's this preposition?
It's in the circle.
It's in the circle. Yep. This one.
Out of the circle.
Out of, yep. And I'll just write out of. This preposition. We're to, towards, yeah.
Towards.
We'll just write towards. So just think of this in both English and Greek. This is kind of how prepositions are working. How about this one?
into, in, among.
Yeah, we're just going to write into here just because it's going into the circle. Another one here. Through, yeah. This is just all spatial for you so you can see what's happening here.
There are tons of prepositions.
There are a ton, yes.
Present. By.
Beside, alongside, yeah. I'll just put beside. So in the accusative, this one is actually going to be on. It's on the circle. And then we have another one. Huper. In relation to the circle. Over or above. Above would probably be a better one. And we could just be doing this all day.
Where did you say that? Huper? Or the...
Huper is this line over here. It's over the circle.
Okay.
In relation to the circle is
Under?
below, under, yeah. So, this will not be on an exam at all, but this is just kind of showing you how prepositions work, and you're going to drop the helper words when you're doing that. So the beautiful thing about prepositions is that you're never going to find a paradigm for ace. You will for haste, which is one, but we'll get into that later. But you'll never find paradigms for any of these prepositions. They are what they are. But there is some change that happens to them. And we'll go over them real quickly. It's really basic. So a preposition you guys will be learning here in Chapter 8 is meta, which means with or after, depending on the case. With in the genitive, after in the accusative. So, skaton or skoton is darkness. So this would be after darkness. So when the word takes, or when the next word begins in a vowel, nothing happens to the word. And this is only in prepositions that end in vowels. So there will never be any change to the word huper. It will always be huper because it ends in a consonant. So metaskoton, after darkness. But let's say that the next word begins in a vowel. Iesun. So meta iesun. So something has to happen to the meta because the next word begins in a vowel. So you're going to find that alpha is going to drop out. You're going to have a little apostrophe up here.
Okay.
So how would you pronounce this?
Iesun.
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 Yeah. So this one would be after Jesus. See how that works?
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll see this little apostrophe here. That'll be very common. And the whole purpose for this is to smooth out the translation here.
So what is meta again?
Meta is going to be with or after, depending on the case. So Jesus.
And that's the case of the noun, right?
That's the case of the noun, yeah.
Right.
But the reason why it changes is because of the fact that Iesun starts with a vowel. It's a smooth breathing mark. So let's imagine that the noun here begins with a vowel and a rough breathing mark. So we'll go huion. Rough breathing mark. So meta huion, right? So we're going to actually see a little bit more change here. We're going to drop the tau and the alpha, and we're going to replace it with the theta. Yep, but we'll still see that apostrophe there. So rather than meta huion, it just is a little awkward, we're going to say meth huion. You're going to see this pretty common here. But imagine that you had huper huion, no change to huper. Why are we not seeing any change to huper?
The consonant.
Because of the consonant. Only happens with vowels.
You can only. So does that make it a neuter word?
Nope. Well, prepositions don't have gender.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, they're prepositions, but they're going to agree, or depending on the case is going to depend on the meaning of the preposition. Not all prepositions, but most prepositions. And so last week we talked about helper words, right? Halagos. Sorry for my oopsilon there. So we would translate. How would we translate this?
The words.
The word of God. Yep. So the word.
Genitive.
Mm-hmm. So let's change the article here. That's what we learned last week, is our helper words in the genitive. I'm going to give you preposition ek. How does that change our sentence here? What does ek mean? Do you remember? Out of, yeah. Or the word out of God. We could probably just say the word from God would be probably a more acceptable one.
Would that be more like the ace?
Ace. The word in God, the word among God.
Oh.
So what did we do with that of? Our typical helper word in the genitive. We dropped it. Why did we drop it?
Because it sounds better.
Well, yeah, that too. But because the preposition means you don't need that helper word. You translate the preposition rather than the helper word. So, any questions on the prepositions? That's basically them. You'll get very familiar with them, but there is no paradigm for you to learn with prepositions. They're just super simple.
Okay.
So you just have to know the nuances to them. You don't have to know a whole lot of that. So kind of now we're going to look at the to be verb. What is the to be verb? Do you guys know? Let's just write it out in English. So I am. You are.
He, she, it is.
Yeah, he, she, it is. What's going to be in the plural?
We are.
We are.
You are.
Yep.
Y'all are.
Y'all are. We'll just do y'all for a little bit, just to make it more clear as which one we're talking about.
They are. So I'm reading the paradigm.
It's all right. There's no shame in that. All right. So if we were to change this English paradigm to past tense, how would we do that? First, we'll get rid of am. I am not. I was. You were.
Are those still to be verbs when you do it that way?
Yep.
Okay. It's just present or past tense.
Yep. Well, this is simple past tense. he, she, it was. We were. Y'all were. And they were. So just the to be verbs. So as you can see, we have first person, second person, third person, singular, and then what's going to be down here?
First, second, third, plural.
Oh, we're getting the hang of this. So let's change the to be verbs to future tense. So we'll get rid of these.
I will be.
I will be.
You will be.
You will be.
You.
Actually, that's more of the past tense. So I will, you will, he, she, it will, we
will.
We will. Y'all will.
They will.
There you are. Yeah, see? So this is the to be verb. As you can see, the inflection is going to change based on function. And we'll talk more about verbs and all of that later, but it's a good time to talk about verbs now, especially in the to be verbs, because Greek also uses to be verbs. So we're going to find eimι, then we're going to find a and a circumflex, and then we're going to find esteem. And so the thing about these, already we've been talking about nouns, right? We're not going to jump into too many things about verbs yet, but just kind of knowing how to be verbs are going to work because they're going to show up all the time. So nouns, how do we determine the difference between the cases and the nouns? We call them case endings. So nouns have case endings. Verbs don't use cases. Verbs use personal endings. And we'll talk more about this later. So verbs don't carry case, they carry person. So I'll just write verbs here. Nouns and verbs are different. They have different paradigms. But I'll go ahead and finish this paradigm for you so you can kind of see what's going on here. Okay, so we have eimι, a, esteem, esmen, este, asen, or asen. We'll talk kind of what's going on here later with the personal endings, but the personal endings are literally going to be first, second, or third, singular or plural. And the thing about English to Greek is that we use the same persons, we use the same singular or plural, so we use both of the same. Yep, I'm recording. So when I say what's the personal ending, you're going to say first, second, or third, singular or plural. So a verb, in the case of esteem, and we'll talk much more about this later, when I ask you to parse esteem, you're going to go present is the tense, active is the voice. We're going to talk about these much later, so don't feel like you need to remember this. Indicative is the mood. We're starting with the most important information, going down to the least. Esteem is third person, singular. As you can see, esteem is right here. Singular. The lexical form is eimι. I'm going to talk about those lady, or eimι. I think that's what I said. eimι. and it means, the inflected meaning is he, she, it is. Mounts wants you to learn this now because this is, the to be verb is bread and butter. Can't get anywhere without it. And so that's what you're doing with parsing. You're going from the most important information down to the least. It's all important information. It's just categorizing it and how it functions. And we mostly talk in the third person plural or in the third person singular or plural. So when you're writing a paper, you're describing in the third person, right? So-and-so did this, they went here, or whatever. When you're writing papers, when you're writing novels, most people tend to talk and write in the third person, either singular or plural. The we would be like, or first person plural would be, we went to the store, we did this, we went here, we went here. The first singular used rarely, like Moby Dick, call me Ishmael. So he's talking in the first person. All of our nouns that we've learned so far are in the third person. The word became flesh is in third person. So your verb will agree in person, not in person, in number and in person with the noun. So in this case, we could say Theos ein ha logos. And so ein is the third person from esteem, but it's past tense. So, and God was the Word, or this one, because we have the article here, is telling us what the subject is. The Word was God. And so the verb here is agreeing in number and in person. This is singular, and this is singular, and this is third. We don't really talk about nouns being in the third person, but this is also third person. And so this, you'll see that verbs will agree in number and in number and in person of the noun that they're modifying. Okay. A lot of good stuff here. Any questions on this?
Yeah, just when you did the I don't even know how to pronounce that one. The ain.
It's ain.
I don't know if that was a
ho logos.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Theos ain ho logon.
Logos.
You're trying to compare the third person singular.
Yep.
But I didn't see what in there is the third person singular.
This right here. This is third.
And how do you know that that's the third person singular?
This is just in lots of different paradigms. This is past tense. This is present tense.
Okay.
Mounts actually has you learn esteem and ain at the end of this chapter.
Okay.
The lexical form is still eimi. We'll get into
okay.
verbs and lexical forms later. But this is the past tense.
Okay.
And so in this case, we have two nominatives, right? Theos and logos. So how do you find your subject? Well, one, your subject is going to have the article here.
Yeah.
So you know that it's not God or a God was the Word or the Word was a God, because this to be verb is saying when they're in the same tense. Mounts gives us, let me get rid of this here. So in that particular instance, we know that that's a predicate nominative, where this is actually taken from John 1:1. This is literally what it reads.
Oh, Roko.
So we're going to start. It's actually Kai Theos. Kai is our conjunction, and God was the Word. But in English, we wouldn't say, and God was the Word. We would say, and the Word
Was God.
the Word was God. So everything that the Word is, God is also. That's kind of one of the things that the to be verb is doing for us. It's telling us nothing. It's telling us something new about the subject. So in English, we have this sentence: the teacher is I. That's actually correct English. You wouldn't say the teacher is me, or the teacher is him. He is the teacher. Is how you would say that.
Yeah.
Because this to be verb is in the predicate is saying that this is the same as this, and you'll find that also in Greek. Versus the teacher.
Kind of makes sense.
Jumped. We'll just do jumped. Different verb. Jumped with him or with his student. Very different sentence than the teacher is I. We'll get into verbs much, much later, but just kind of giving you idea that verbs have persons, not cases. So nouns, case endings, verbs, personal endings. Any questions? All right. Let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break.